Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars, come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
My dad was really, really special, and I loved my dad a lot.
I'm proud of him, and that even though he isn't here with us, but he died as a true hero.
I miss everything about him.
In the moment that the officers and I had to come see the children, my biggest reaction was, I don't have 7 arms. I have 7 children who just lost their father, and I don't have 7 arms to wrap around them.
I'm Frank Silla, chairman of the Stephen Silla Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Our foundation is committed to delivering mortgage-free homes for Gold Star families and fallen first responder families.
To not have to worry financially is a huge peace of mind. The thought of, what in the world will I possibly do to pay the bills? How will I possibly let the children have a life that feels normal? I don't want them to have to quit their piano lessons or their basketball. I don't want them to feel that we have to move into a little apartment and struggle financially in addition to the emotional weight.
There are over 1,000 families that need our help. Tunnel to Towers is honoring those heroes that risked their lives by providing them with mortgage-free homes.
Those who serve us and then lay down their lives protecting our freedoms and our safety, the least we can do is $11 a month to give them that peace of always knowing there's a home, there's that sanctuary when life feels like it's been tipped upside down, because it has, when you lose a parent in the line of duty, to know you can go home, you can be safe, there's no risk of losing your home. That's a peace of mind that I can't believe you can get for $11 a month.
I'd like to ask you to contribute $11 a month to support their efforts.
Please donate $11 a month by calling 1-844-BRAVEST or visit tunneltotowers.org.
I'm Jordan Klinger, an attorney at McIntyre Law. The decision to hire an attorney after you've been injured is important. The decision on who to hire is even more important. At McIntyre Law, we will settle a case if the offer to our client is fair. Partial justice is no justice at all. At McIntyre Law, we are committed to obtaining full justice for our clients. Contact McIntyre Law at 405-917-5200 or visit us at mcintyrelaw.com.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
And welcome everyone to another episode of He Said, She Said. I am one of your hosts, Aggie, and with me is the very awesome Rick. How are you doing tonight?
Awesome. Where? Who? Wait, what? Hey, how you doing, Aggie?
I'm doing well. I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I don't know. I was cranky today. I still kind of am a little bit. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I'm kind of getting pissed off with all the shit that everybody's posting all over X, Twitter, whatever the hell it's called.
I think that hit me yesterday because last night I was really irritated, and I signed off like around 10:15. I just decided not even to see the news, nothing. And I don't think it's just the news. I think everybody's kind of like at that point where they're irritated, like, when is winter going to leave irritation, and why is it raining so much irritation, and it's just everything, like, so yeah, so I was irritated yesterday. I'm okay today, but I totally get it.
Yeah, no, it hit me today, and then I ranted for a few hours, and then I felt better. So I don't know. I don't know. It's Friday. I should be in a better mood. I'm headed to one of my daughter's houses tomorrow for grandkid's birthday, which I think is another reason why I'm just kind of It's not that I don't like, going to see my kids and hanging out. It's I've gotten used to not having to people. And tomorrow, with everything I have to do, Saturday's going to be way too people-y for me. I don't like that anymore. It's weird because everybody's like, with everything that you do, how is it that you're so much of an introvert? I'm like, because I can do most of it from my house. That's how.
See, that's my issue. I cannot do everything. I just can't do most things from my house. And today we were discussing, it's time to pay taxes and all that stuff. And so we were getting all our stuff together.
I think that's another reason I'm cranky.
Yeah,
waiting for them just to abolish the IRS and get it over with, but it ain't gonna happen.
I feel like Judge Judy points to watch. Hurry up and abolish it. But yeah, we were talking about, because we owe every year. We try not to get a refund back, and so this year apparently it's slightly different. We're getting a little bit back, and he was making fun of the whole, what are we going to do with this windfall? It's like, what can we do? And let's go take a vacation. And I said, oh no, that's never going to happen. First of all, we have a little Anchor, our dog, right? There's no place to board her, and I hate boarding dogs. So, and there's no one that can come and stay with her. But aside that, it's like there's always something going on the property. Like, we need to get an aerator for the lake. We needed to pave part of the road. We needed to do this. We needed to do that. We needed to mulch all the things. We have, in the past week, we've actually taken out 3 trees, and we have like 10 to go. So I'm like, we're never going to vacation. This is our vacation.
This is why we bought a house with a lake. This is our vacation.
This is our vacation. So I just gave up.
Dude, with as much as you like hosting people, you guys should be Airbnb so you can make money.
We had honestly thought about that, but there are so many issues with Airbnb and the requirements and all that stuff. And I just said, you know what? I'd rather just not make money off it and make sure that people just enjoy it. rather than them coming and having to be careful with everything and then running the risk of somebody, stealing something or whatever. I'd rather know the people that are going to be staying here rather than just not. But that's just me.
Yeah,
My sister's thinking about running one, and she's a fabulous business person, so I know that she would do really well with it. But she has been helping somebody with their inn. This person bought I guess, an old plantation here in Northeast Texas, and she's transforming it into an inn, a bed and breakfast and an inn, or one or the other or both. I don't know what it is. And my sister has been decorating it for her. She was hired to do this, and seeing all the stuff that her client is going through in order to make this a bed and breakfast. She's like now rethinking the whole Airbnb thing. And I was like, well, it doesn't have to be as grand. I mean, her place has like 10 bedrooms as opposed to, my sister just having a small cabin or something, but who knows?
So, and Rex, before I give you shit, no, it's all out of love, bro. But you're starting to remind me of the dude from the Progressive commercial with the motorcycle. It's always like, "Hey, I brought my +1," and hey, hey, Grandma, here's your cake, and it's a cake that's shaped like a motorcycle. Yeah, love you, man. Love you. Anyway, but yeah, no, I mean, I get money back, but it's only because I have, my kids, can't really take care of themselves, so I get write-offs from some of the stuff that I do for them. And Gracie lives with me, and I'm her caregiver, so I get her money. So, but if it not for that, I would be broke all the time with the federal government. So I understand, but I don't know. It's just all of it drives me nuts, and it's like today because. And I started talking about it today because I'm like, everybody's talking about this stupid signal chat thing like it's some sort of life and death situation, when in reality, we're not talking about all the things that were in fact life and death situations that all pull right back to the CIA. That's why when you were like, let's talk about this tonight, I'm like, oh, thank God I can stop talking about the crap that's
Yes. Well, this is in honor of Disney's quite possibly the biggest flop of the entire, I guess, corporation, because I can't think of any other movie that has done as badly as Snow White has. And I'm including the Black Cauldron in this. Okay, that's how bad this movie is doing. At least the Black Cauldron has a solid cult following, and it has garnered, it became a sleeper hit. Now people love it, and Disney puts it back in the vault to generate interest, after 7 years or whatever it is that they do. But this is bad. So I thought, in the interest of celebrating Disney's conflagration of Snow White, we would talk about our favorite Disney movies.
Rachel Zegler, the worst Disney princess ever. Even Klinger is a better Disney princess than her.
I'll be honest, she's the worst. She's the worst DreamWorks prince ever.
Oh, God. That's fired by Aggie. Did not see her coming.
I'm not one. I don't like making fun of people's looks or anything like that, but I cannot get that comparison. Somebody did that comparison on X, and it took off, and many people have actually reposted it, and I'm like, I can't get it out of my head now. I cannot get it out of my head, and it drives me crazy. So I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you can't send the CGI dwarves to go in and do your work, so they can pay your taxes. So yeah,
nope.
Not good. Anyway, sorry, I was responding to Calvin in the chat. But yeah, so in honor of the fact that Snow White sucks, we decided to talk about Disney movies that don't suck. So that's kind of where we are. And of course, Aggie, being an honorary Disney princess, overdid the assignment. So.
It's not that actually, I'm an honorary Disney piglet, as you well know, because that's That was my costume when I worked at Disney for a couple of weeks. I was the only one small enough for that costume. But I did work for Disney in several sections, I guess, not just the park for work study, but I also did the retail stores as well. So there was a time that Disney, I lived and breathed it 24/7. And I mean, we had to memorize all the songs. We had to sing them in the stores. We had to sing them when we went to the conferences. We had to sing them at the parks. We had to sing them, when we were, oh my gosh, y'all have no idea. When Beauty and the Beast was opening, they had their the Broadway show opened in Houston. It did not open on Broadway because the special effects were being done by David Copperfield, and he at the time was in Houston. So and he was having a show there. So that's why they did it in Houston instead. And so those of us who worked at Disney corporate and everything had to go down there, and we had to sing. Y'all, we had to sing songs.
Oh yeah, I remember you
from the movie, and it was hell. It was hell because the audience, the people waiting in line and everything, we had to it was huge. I cannot tell you how huge this was when the Broadway musical opened. It was tremendous. I mean, the streets were blocked off, and it was insane. We had to cheer people up who were waiting to go in, and we would weave through the crowd singing these songs. And yes, we were dressed in pleated skirts and Letterman sweaters, which was the uniform of the Disney stores at the time. So we looked like the Mouseketeers, okay? And yes, we were wearing the mouse ears and everything, and we were walking through and everything. It was a nightmare. But
you were Annette, weren't you?
I was not Annette. I was probably closer to Cubby. But anyway.
Hey!
We did have an Annette. She was built like an Annette.
So by the way, request from the chat, photos of the Princess Piglet didn't happen.
Oh my gosh, no. There were no photographs. And there was a reason for that. Disney discouraged, not Disney, but the people that ran the costume, the cast of characters. We were discouraged from taking pictures of each other in costume because it was skirting the line of copyright infringement. Because they would be afraid that we would sell those photos to, even though people come in and take pictures of them all the time. The understanding is those are for private use or anything, and anything that ends up in a yearbook or anything, you're not making money off of it. But we as cast members could not do that. So there are no pictures, thank God, of me as Piglet.
Trust me, I had planned on trying to get fancy since we were doing movies, and I was going to try to find out what your list was in advance and coordinate with mine and actually get some clips. But then I remember Disney doesn't believe in fair use, so fuck Disney.
No, they do not. Disney is very jealous of their brand. I don't know why. They just set it on fire, so it doesn't matter.
I mean, yeah, they officially set it on fire, so I picture it going the way of Tesla stock. So just
yeah.
Or
so
worse.
Anyway, I guess we should get started because it's a lengthy list. But what do you want to do first, animated or live action?
Either or, because mine's kind of a mix of the two. So whatever you want to do first.
Okay, let's start with animated because most people know those.
Mm-hmm. Where are you going first?
I'm going to go with, let's start from top to bottom instead of bottom to top. Is that good?
That's fine by me.
So my favorite, and y'all, I know this is weird to sound, but I have favorites based on things outside of the actual plot of the film. So my favorite animated film from Disney is Cinderella. And there's a reason for that. It was the first color cartoon I ever saw. And I didn't understand it we were I was in, I want to say it was second grade, and we were bused to Ponce, because I was in Puerto Rico at the time, to watch this particular movie. It was a big deal. The entire school went. We're talking from first grade to 12th grade. We all went to see this movie. And it was a big deal. And they showed it. And this was before there was dubbing or anything. Subtitles. There was dubbing, but there was no dubbing of the songs. They couldn't dub the songs. So it was only the speaking parts, So there was a lot, the singing I didn't understand or anything like that. And I was completely entranced by it. I didn't know the title. I didn't know what it was. I just thought that it was so pretty. And when that gal used magic to do that dress, I was like, I want a dress just like that. Never going to happen, but I still want that dress. I know. But it wasn't until I was about 12 years old that we were watching The Wonderful World of Disney, and that movie came on. And I was like, that's the movie that I went to when I was in school. And I was able to understand it. And so it was in English, and I was like, oh, the voices don't match, because the voices were totally different. But I understood what the songs were. I understood everything. I understood the plot, and I was completely enchanted. So to me, that's still my favorite of all the animated films. And I know that Disney has done bigger, prettier animated films, but the emotional attachment that I have to that one, I think that's why I put it at number one.
See, I have a similar thing, but I actually have a tie for number one for those very reasons. So my number ones are Sleeping Beauty, and I have an explanation for that. So Sleeping Beauty kind of became a favorite movie of mine, because I actually got made fun of in kindergarten because we were acting out part of the scenes, and I was the prince, and a friend, somebody who became a lifelong friend of mine, was the princess. So when I leaned over to do the kiss to wake her up, of course I faked like I was pecking her on the cheek, and I made a clucking sound with my tongue, and everybody thought I actually kissed her.
Nice.
I was like being made fun of for like weeks in kindergarten class, but we're still friends to this day. We still talk on Facebook. So.
Well, now that's cool.
She's married and got kids, so it ain't nothing like that. But at one point, I think our parents thought it might have been, and then they moved away. So. But yeah, so that's my first number one. My other one is The Jungle Book, for reasons. I love that movie. I don't know what it was about that movie, but I absolutely loved it. And I think part of it was the character of Baloo. I absolutely loved that character. I've always been into music, so that was probably another reason I really, really liked that one, because I had the record. I had the soundtrack for this.
You did?
Yes. My mom found it in one of those 800 pay COD later things, and then she signed me up for I had like Disney records coming like once a month for like forever. So, and that was one of them. And it's funny because I remember because I had a Happy Days record player with Fonzie on the back of it that would play both 33s and 45s, and I thought I was the coolest kid on the block.
Oh man, that is too cool. I love Jungle Book. And I mean, how can you go wrong? Louis Prima is, singing I Want to Be Like You. And I love that song. I used to sing it all the time. But I mean, I can't think of any other animated film where Louis Prima has an actual big presence like that. So I don't think he even did any other animated films. I think that's the only one.
I don't think he did either. Because he has a very distinctive voice, and that's a funny thing with me, because I learn everything by ear. It used to freak my mom out because we would be watching something, or and I would only be half paying attention, and I'm like, hey, I know that voice. That's the person that did this, 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 and this. And she's like, how the hell do you know that?
No, I had King Louis was like my favorite one, and it was the whole concept of the orangutan wanting to be like a human was just, for me, it was so adorable. But I love that movie too. I don't blame you for having it number one, or tied.
Tied for number one, but yeah, still there, still number one.
Okay,
All right.
so
What's your number two?
My number two is probably Disney's shortest animated feature length film, and that is Dumbo. And for me, Dumbo has,
That's on my list too. So
is it Dumbo has a very special place in my heart because I used to work with special ed children, and I Dumbo was like, I would show Dumbo for them, and they would be enchanted with Dumbo because Dumbo also had a disability. A lot of people don't see it as a disability, but I always saw it as a disability. And he was a child who loves his mother very much. Obviously, his mother defended him and didn't see the disability as a disability. And Dumbo learned to take that disability and make it into an asset. And I always would show that to children who needed to see their particular disability as an asset. And every time I visit a friend who happens to have a child that has a disability, whatever the disability is, I take them a stuffed Dumbo and I tell them the story behind it. And I've yet to meet anyone who, when I tell them how I view Dumbo, that the light doesn't go on and they just say, "Oh my gosh, you're absolutely right." On top of that, Baby Mine is probably my favorite lullaby. And I sang that to all of my children. To this day, my daughter, whenever she has a stomach ache or something, because she has GI issues, sometimes she will call me and say, "Mom, can you sing the song?" And I'll sing it to her on the phone. And it will, she will start, feeling more relaxed, and it helps her, with her pain and issues and everything. So my kids still like it when I sing that song. But now that, my grandnephews and my grandnieces, I would sing it to them. My nieces ask me, "Where can I find that song? It's so beautiful," and everything. And I tell them it's a Disney song. They'd be like, "No way." And I'm like, "Yeah, from Dumbo." But for me, Dumbo was like, that is the story of a child who overcomes and becomes something greater than himself. And it's just a beautiful story to me.
I can see that. But yeah, that actually would, because I tried to keep my list a little shorter than yours, so that was Dumbo was going to get an honorable mention, but it was on my list. So
Oh,
yeah,
I'm happy about that. And what was your number two?
Unbeknownst to you guys, Aggie started the show with 5 of each.
Yes, I did. I had to go back down to 3 of each because, but we can, if there's time, we'll talk about the rest.
I was gonna say, I told you probably didn't have to, because we don't have to end it exactly 9 to
Dude, do you
9.
have any idea how many? I mean, because it was Walt Disney Productions up until 1969, I think it was, and then it became Walt Disney Pictures. So there's 2 different sets, and then there's the live action and the animation, and then you get into the Touchstone, Miramax, Hollywood Pictures. It's just an avalanche. So
you said 69.
sorry, not really.
I apologize for nothing. All right, so my number 2, and probably honestly would have been my number 1 if not for the nostalgia of the other 2, because it was one of my favorite. I drove my parents nuts with this movie. I had the poster and everything in my room. The Rescuers from '77. I loved it.
I love that movie too.
And I think the funny thing is, there's that character Evinrude in the movie. I think one of the reasons I was so attached to that movie is because that was the kind of boat my boat engine my dad had an outboard motor, and it was an Evinrude. I don't know, something about that just kind of clicked with me. I was like, "Hey, I know that name."
Well, it was weird because when I saw it, it was I think it was they re-released it right before they released the second uh, the sequel, Down Under,
Not
and
as good.
so
Good, but
not as good, but still George C. Scott, right? Um, but that's when I saw it, and I didn't know what Evinrude was. My dad was busting out laughing, and I'm like, "What's so funny?" He said Evinrude. And I was like, "What is that?" It's like literally the boat, a motorboat. You know, I was like, "Oh, now it makes sense." But yeah, they would put, Disney puts adult things in their kid movies too, for the adults too. So
I mean, well, that was a very common thing with cartoons back in the day. There was humor that was directed at the kids and humor that was directed at the adults, so they knew were gonna be watching it with their kids. There was a pretty major goof in this movie though too, and I don't know if anybody else caught it. So, during the Rescue Aid Society meeting, one of the nameplates says Africa. Africa is a continent, not a country, and as such would not have actually had a UN delegate.
you notice that too, huh?
Oh, yeah. I always notice things like that. I drive people crazy with things like that. Like, "How did you notice that?" Well, I can't yeah, I can't help it.
Oh, no, that was a cute movie. I loved it. And of course, Eva Gabor, her voice has always been like delicious. So yeah, it was great.
So, another little interesting tidbit about this movie, the opening credits that show the journey of Penny's bottle through raging ocean waters?
Mhm.
That entire thing was done with still paintings.
I believe it. I believe it.
It's
It
just
was
amazing. It's just amazing how they used to get things done. I mean, especially looking at things like now that AI is starting to do animations and everything else. When you see all the work it used to take to put into things like this, and now we take it for granted, it just I don't know, that kind of stuff still kind of amazes me.
well, it's funny because quick aside, Walt Disney himself had wanted to make the story of the Little Mermaid for a very long time. He actually started to do the concept. He started writing about the concept back in the 40s, had to put it aside due to the war and all of the films that he was doing for the war effort. And then there were other films that required, his uh, production. So he actually had to put Little Mermaid aside. But there were they had started the concept and they had started making the cells and the stills for the beginning, where you see when you're watching the Little Mermaid and you see the waves and the boat being tossed. All of that had already been done back in the 40s, and they used it for the film. So as a tribute to Disney, because he himself had done them. So that was, and yet you cannot tell. It was so seamless that you couldn't tell. From the point where Eric comes in, the sea air and all this stuff and whatever. Um, but the whole thing prior was done in the 40s. I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, it's amazing now that nowadays that you have, like you said, CGI, you have AI, you have all this stuff doing all this, and you take it for granted. And there was a time when it was all hand done, hand painted, hand drawn. It was an art.
I mean, it really was, and I know this isn't usually the show that we talk about this kind of stuff on, but the funny thing for me is seeing all these stories that are popping up now. I mean, now pretty much there's like 6 or 7 different companies around the world that are getting seriously into the point of having like major robotics. Like I saw a company out of somewhere that is actually giving people the option to sell their face and their voice for use in a human appearing android for $200,000. And I'm just like, ugh. And then I was reading an article today that basically is talking about Elon Musk when he does ship off the first ship to go to Mars. He's considering sending one of his robots because he's going to test out to see if the robots can be the ones to start, putting the habitats together, etc., before people are ever there. which is a smart idea. But it's just all of a sudden, since AI has burst on the scene, it's like all these things are just happening all at once. And I'm like, are they just using AI to push things even further, even faster, and we haven't caught on to that yet? Because it was weird. There's there's a spinoff of a Sherlock series called Watson that
Hmm.
has Morris Chestnut in it, I think is his name, who played Watson. And on one of the last episodes that I saw, they actually used um, gene mapping technology to remove sickle cell disease from a patient using the very same technology that, according to scientists, has now made cloning not theoretical.
Yeah, creepy.
I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for
Okay.
all of this. I just don't know if I'm ready for all of this. Anyway,
I'm not, dude. I'm not. I was at the post office and I took out my debit card and I'm looking at it going, how the hell do I use this? It's one of those tap things now. And I'm like, I asked her for help. And I felt stupid, but I'm like, I'm so old fashioned. I still remember when you put your card in and then they put paper on top of it and then went chick chick.
oh yeah, I know. My first couple of credit cards, they were doing that. I was like,
Oh man, okay.
but dude,
All right.
I grew up in a poor house though, so my mom would take advantage of the fact that it took like the card company a month to figure out what you had bought. So she'd run to the store when she was broke, and it was like 2 weeks before payday, and be like, "I'm just gonna charge it because I'll get paid and be able to pay them before they ever realize that I didn't have anything in there." That doesn't work.
Yes.
Don't try that
Doesn't
at
work
home.
anymore. It doesn't try it. Don't try it at home. It doesn't work. All right. Okay, so I guess we're number 3, right?
Yep, you're number 3.
Okay, so my number 3 is a tie, but it makes sense when you know what it is. My number 3 is Fantasia and Fantasia 2000.
I
You
can
have you can't have one without the other, in my opinion. But
see. I never got into the Fantasia movies. Now I did when I got older, but when I was a kid, those were boring to me, and which is weird because I really like music, but I didn't like the fact that there was nothing really going on but animation and music for the entire thing. I was like, yeah, no, this is not holding my attention. This is not happening.
I I was entranced when the reason I loved Fantasia was there was no speaking up until Mickey goes to say hello to what's his name, and that's the only speaking that you have. But putting animating something just to the music and telling a story without words is very difficult to do, and so for me, Fantasia was just storytelling without me having to pay attention to any words. I could just visualize everything. The story was being told. I will say, I don't like Igor Stravinsky. Rite of Spring, just, it's so boring to me. And I'm a big classical person. I just can't stand that piece. And of course, that's the one where all the dinosaurs are coming out and everything. But everything else, that was that was just beautifully done. And then when 2000 came out, I loved the fact that they got different uh, movie stars that had been heavily involved with Disney throughout their careers to actually introduce each piece. And they used some pieces in Fantasia 2000 that were just absolutely stunning, pieces that you could actually tell a story without using words, without any speaking parts, without any of that. And um, there was humor, and there was action, and there was drama, and there was a love story, and all of these stories were told. And the very last one was one of my favorites, which was um, the Firebird, and it was so beautifully done. It was about the renewal that comes after destruction in nature. And for me, that story in and of itself was worth the price of the ticket because it was so stunningly done. I mean, I like I said, I love classical music, and this was fantastic. And you know, kids are like, yeah, I want to see them talking. I want to see the jokes. I want to see, that kind of thing. these were done for adults, and you could tell they were done for adults, but they were also done so that if a child saw it, he could understand it. One of my the one that just blew me away also was Respighi's Pines of Rome. I actually visited Rome, and I had at the time Walkmans and Discmans were a thing, and I had a Walkman, and I had Respighi in a tape, and I got to walk through the Pines of Rome while listening to that piece. That was on my list of things to do before I die, and I got to do it. It was awesome. But the way they visualized the Pines of Rome was completely different from anything that I would have pictured, and it was really well done. So that's one of the reasons why I included that one in my top. I could sit there and I could just watch that, and I could lose myself in a story that's completely visual.
I can see that. I mean, yeah, like I said, once I was older, I was able to enjoy them. But as a kid, I was like, yeah, no, this is boring. I'm gonna go watch something else. Went to my room, turned on Dukes of Hazzard or something. I don't even remember. But all right. So I'm jumping ahead a bit for my number 3. This was my first legit cartoon crush. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I don't know. I don't know any kid in my age range around the 80s that didn't wish that Jessica Rabbit was a real person. I'm just saying.
I really like that movie too.
Well, I mean, it was I don't even know if anything like it had really been done before, because it was
No, I don't think so.
like a blend of animation and live action, and it was done so well that you just really got lost in the story. And it was like a childhood dream come true, because that's what every kid thought when they were like watching like Bugs Bunny cartoons and stuff, is that these were actually real things, and they were still they were living life outside of the cellulose and everything else. So seeing that brought to life was just amazing to me, and the characters were just awesome. And I have been a Christopher Lloyd fan since Taxi. Everything he does, I like. Even in Star Trek 3, I liked his character in Star Trek 3.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "Ooh, you like that character too?" I do, because I know how much he wanted to be a part of that universe, and he finally managed to make it happen.
Yep.
But again, it's just, there was just so much there. And I remember this was during the time that I was out of state, and we were flying home for summers and flying home for Christmases. And my dad always made a big deal of us going to the movies together at least a few times in the summer when we were there. And that was one of the movies that me and my brother watched together. And I just the whole premise of the movie was just amazing to me, and it was just so well done. I mean, I actually watched it, I think, a little over a year ago. It still honestly holds up. I was surprised.
I liked it. I thought it was great that Disney actually got the rights from several other cartoon giants like Warner Brothers and Hanna-Barbera and all of those to use cartoons in that film. But I think that, we've seen live action and animation before, like Mary Poppins and stuff. But I think the reason it was so different is that in that particular film, the live action was actually part of the human world. It wasn't like in Mary Poppins, where it was a fantasy that they were visiting, or Bedknobs and Broomsticks, same concept. It was part of the human world. There was a town, Toontown, and people would go there, and they made transactions with Toons, and Toons actually had contracts to be in these films, and they acted like people. I think that's why it was so novel, because it kind of made Toons more human, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Jessica Rabbit, man. I love that when she said, "I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way."
Yeah. So Here's an interesting little side note because some of the because the whole story for Toontown is that all the tunes have been living there since 1947. Interesting little side note though is some of the tunes in the movie actually weren't even created until much later. So how they fixed that is they actually wrote in a little bit of a backstory for anybody who bothered to ask, and basically the backstory was, if anybody brought it up, was that they were in Toontown all along, but they weren't discovered until 1949, 1953, and often other years, sometimes much, much later when they made their specific debuts in cartoons. So I
Right.
always
It,
thought,
it was like they went to work at that particular year, but they had been in Toontown the whole time. Yeah.
so I always thought that was I was like, dude, somebody put a lot of thought into that to like put that detail in there in case it came up. So here's another little interesting thing about this one. So Porky Pig, if you remember, closes out the movie telling the characters his famous line of course, and that's all, folks, and then saying the same thing to the viewers.
Mhm.
Tinkerbell appears, fading the entire scene into black. So it was kind of a weird thing where, for just a brief moment, Looney Tunes and Disney shared a screen, even to the end.
It was surreal to see all of those cartoons like talking to each other and greeting each other and everything. Is you didn't grow up with that. Mickey was never talking with Bugs Bunny. So
So,
no, it's a great
so
movie.
Bit just said in the chat that Who Framed Roger Rabbit is the unofficial sequel to Chinatown. I, I'm, I don't guess I'm getting the title reference. I'm gonna have to look that up. That could be interesting. I don't
Whoa,
know.
wow, that's dark, and now I cannot unsee it, Bit. Thank you.
That's what he's here for. That's why I already typed it. Welcome.
I know Max and we're going to think about this all night long. I'm going to be laying in bed going, holy cow, I cannot unsee this.
Aggie's gonna be trying to find her favorite serial murderer to put her back to sleep.
Yeah.
Another.
His forensic files on.
I was thinking of Jessica Fletcher. Another Jessica.
Oh yeah, no, she's my all-time favorite.
Oh,
Also,
I know.
big time Disney person. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. I actually fell down a rabbit hole today because that was one of my live actions was going to have her in it, and I could find no confirmation that it was a Disney movie. I know it is, and it's on Disney Plus, so I know it is, but I couldn't find anything specifically saying that it was, and it weirded me out. I'm like, did I fall down another Mandela effect hole or something? Because I'm confused. But anyway.
Okay. All right. I guess we should do live action now.
Yep, we should. Are we still starting number 1 to number 3?
Well, I was starting with number 1, but we can go to.
No, that's fine. We can do that again. That's why I was just double checking. So what's your number 1, ladies first?
Anybody who knows me should know this because this is my nickname, and I got it because of this film. My favorite live action of all time, Disney, is Pollyanna. To this day, I'm almost 60 years old, and I'm still Pollyanna. And people call me that, and some people call me that in a kind way, and some people call it in a not so kind way, but it doesn't matter. I do find a reason to be glad every day. I find something to be happy about every day. I look at everything in a positive way. I cannot tell you the amount of times my sisters have thrown something at me and called me that because they get sick of me. But it never fails because after they're like, you were right, and they let their anger go because they know that I'm not being mean. I'm just telling them, to look for something positive every day. And so when I was I want to say I was 14 or something, I think Pollyanna was being shown on ABC or something. They didn't have, the Wonderful World of Disney was no longer on. I think they had just quit that year or something, or the year before that. But they were still showing Disney movies every so often. And Pollyanna came on Sunday afternoon. And I sat down to watch it because I was done with homework. I was done reading my book. I didn't want to go outside. So I sat down to watch the movie. And thankfully, my parents were not monopolizing the TV. Otherwise, I would have missed it. Mom would have put it on something and I would have forget it. So I'm watching it and I'm like, this girl is like so damn sweet. This is good. Why is she like this? And so as her story started to unfold, the reason why she's now living with her aunt, the reason why she was a missionary child, she, her parents passed away. They were missionaries, and so she grew up, in a very Christian um, household, and her dad had always told her, about the good things that are in the Bible and how to be grateful for whatever was given to her. And one example that she gives somebody is like, I had always wanted a doll, and I had asked for a doll. And when the missionary barrels came, they had sent a pair of crutches, and I was very sad about them. And my dad told me, well, you need to find a reason to be glad that you got the crutches. And she's like, well, like what? Just be glad you don't need to use them. And in that instant, it started clicking in my head. When you think God is giving you something bad, he's not giving you something bad. He's giving you the opportunity to look at it in a different way. And that's how I started living my life. I started doing that consciously. And I do find a reason to be glad about something every single day. And believe it or not, it helps so much, especially nowadays. So that for me is my favorite live action film from Disney. And believe me, Disney has hundreds of live action films. And still I have not found one with the message that can be topped from, Pollyannas. So that's my number one. How about yours?
So my all-time number one is actually from way back. And hang on, I'm trying to find the exact title of it because I don't want to mess it up. But I was looking for something else on a list that I had. So hang on. Where did you go? Anyway, so my number one is actually, and it's from 1954, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Great film.
Probably one of the first live action Disney movies I ever remember watching because it was good. It was good.
Oh no, the visuals of that film were fantastic. I love the part where they're already inside the Nautilus, right? And they're talking to Captain Nemo, and they ask him questions, and they're looking around. It's like, and they're like, how could you live here or whatever? And he opens the windows so that you see the vastness of the ocean floor and everything. And he says, see how peaceful it is here. And I mean, every time I see that scene, I almost start to cry because I'm like, I want to go on the Nautilus now.
So, interesting bit of trivia for those of you who don't know, this was not the first adaptation of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. There was a silent version in 1916, but the undersea footage in this version was actually shot in the Bahamas in the same exact location they used for the silent one in 2016 or in 1916. So I thought that was interesting. And this happens to be my favorite quote from this movie. And this is Captain Nemo. I am not what is called a civilized man, Professor. I have done with society for reasons that seem good to me. Therefore, I do not obey its laws. I don't know why that quote has stuck with me enough that I still remember it to this day, other than the fact that it kind of made the hair on the back of my neck stand up at the time. So, yeah.
I can see why.
That's my favorite line from that entire movie. But you're right, especially for it being in the 50s. The visuals were just kind of they were absolutely amazing for the time. And it's just one of those things that kind of stuck with me. The scariest thing for me was the giant squid, dude. I'm like, and honestly, that's one of the reasons why everybody's like, you don't try enough Japanese food. You should eat sushi. You should eat squid. I'm like, dude, you remember that I watched 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea when I was like 6, right? I'm afraid some giant fucking squid's gonna come get revenge for me eating their kid. So
you killed Aunt Martha.
Oh.
Oh man, no, that's a great film. Such a great film.
Yeah,
Okay.
no. Okay, so what's next on your side?
My next one is probably one that most people are not familiar with. It's called The North Avenue Irregulars. And it starred, I believe, Ed Herman and Susan, his name escapes me right now. But Edward Herman is a preacher. And there is a gambling syndicate problem in the town that he's at. And the ladies of his parish, want to help because they're sick of, all of this, gambling and all the stuff that's going on. And I mean, one of them is Cloris Leachman. And it is the most hilarious movie, having a preacher and like 6 ladies conducting raids. They start working with the FBI to shut down this gambling syndicate, and it's hilarious. There's a part where there is a what do you call those? Where cars are bumping into each other, that kind of rally.
Bumper cars? Or
No,
you
not
talking
bumper. I'm talking about
demolition derby.
Yeah, it's an actual demolition derby, and the ladies are in it, and they're very mean and they're very mad. So it turns into a demolition derby. It is a really, really cute movie. It was like really under the radar, but it was so funny, and it was so it's kind of neat because religion played a part in this, and this was back when it was okay to do this for a film. It was okay for it to be shown in theaters. It was okay for it to be shown on TV. It was an actual good family film. And I to this day, I can sit there and I can just watch this movie over and over again because Cloris Leachman's character was just so funny. She was like she liked keeping up her appearance. So she was always in the hair salon. She was always having her nails done. She had this cute little French poodle thing. And I mean, she was hilarious, the whole thing. They all had CB radios, and it was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like I said, some of mine are pretty obscure and not really world known. I mean, yes, Calvin, I will agree. Tron, Black Hole, Miracle, always. But I wanted to dig for the ones that I had an emotional attachment to. This was fun.
Well, that's kind of me. Like, Black Hole's definitely one of mine, but it wasn't in when we decided to go down to the top 3. It didn't make the cut for live action, but it is one of mine. I watched that movie over and over and over again. But yeah. So for me, my number, we're at number 2 for live action now, right? I'm just trying to make sure I didn't mess up somewhere. I think that's where we are. So my number 2 for live action is actually a series of movies, but it starts off with The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes with Kurt Russell starring as Dexter. A very young Kurt Russell, and if I was into dudes, I can kind of see why chicks dug him. Just saying.
Chicks still do. Chicks still do.
Those eyes are nuts. But yeah, so this wasn't Disney's first attempt at franchises, but it was kind of an attempt at loosely tied together movies because some of the characters remain the same, but there were different movies throughout throughout it. So it started with the computer wore tennis shoes, and then hang on, I'm trying to find my list. I lost it. I just had it. I'm looking right at part of it, but it doesn't have the part that I was looking for. But so I don't remember the rest of the titles, but I do remember the premises of the next one. Actually, hang on, is it right here? No, but so the premise of this one is the computer wore tennis shoes entertains, and also stars Kurt Russell leading brightly as Dexter. The rest of the cast aren't all that remarkable, even if there are a load of faces that you could recognize. But the entire plot is basically kid becomes smart as a computer due to a lab accident, and in the next installment, he develops invisibility, and then there's a movie later where he becomes the world's strongest man. So yeah, it's just kind of a weird little quirky thing, and I don't know, I loved the whole premise of the movies. So, and it took so the movie set at Medfield College, and an accident with a donated computer gives Dexter Riley the ability to remember any knowledge learned instantly and perfectly. I don't know, maybe I could relate with that because back then I had a really good memory. It's not as good as it used to be, though. I will admit that. Whatever I had is fading as I get older. It makes me sad. However, I did just find out that this is still available on Disney Plus, so I may actually go rewatch it later tonight.
Susan Clark. Thank you. I knew she'd come into my head. Sorry. North Avenue Regular. Susan Clark was in it. So okay.
Nice.
Sorry.
I know how it gets when things like get stuck in your. Like, I can't stop thinking about it till I figure this out. Trust me.
Well, she's on my third pick too. So I was like trying to think. I know she's in this one too, and I know her name. And she was in Webster, and she played the wife to her real life husband. And so it was. And I was trying to figure out what was her name, but I got it. Okay. So my number 3, Cal will be very proud of me. It's the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Oh,
I love that movie.
I always kind of felt like that was a ripoff of the Little Rascals, though, if I'm being honest. But it was still good.
It kind of was. I mean, you had for the the comic relief. Come on, you had Tim Conway and Don Knotts. It was so perfect.
They were awesome in that movie.
And I love the fact, Bill Bixby. And I watched this movie after I had seen The Incredible Hulk, right? So I see this movie and I'm like, I know that guy. That's the guy from The Incredible Hulk. Wait, he's such a jerk in this movie. It was kind of like eye-opening for me. But
see, that was one of the things that kind of turned me off to that movie, because if there's somebody that I like as a character and I see them playing something else that's completely antithetical to that character, I never really managed to get into it very well. I didn't like seeing him play a bad guy. I'm just weird like that, I guess. I don't know.
Well, he wasn't really bad. He was a gambler, and he was always looking for the easy deal. But he gets duped into taking care of 3 orphans, and the orphans actually stumble into a gold mine. So, he decides, hey, I'm going to keep the kids and blah, blah, and all that stuff. And it's just, Tim Conway and Don Knotts are trying to steal the gold nugget and all this. It's just hilarious all around. And it, of course, it ends happily ever after. And that's kind of good. I'm not a fan of love stories that end happily ever after, but this was more about, him finding his responsibilities and becoming, a dad to what in effect happened to fall on his lap, which were the 3 kids, finding a woman that is willing to take him on and someone who is strong enough to deal with what he used to be. and make him a better person. And so it was, for me, it was adorable. It was cute. Cute and adorable always go hand in hand. But it was also funny. I mean, you cannot go any movie that has Tim Conway or Don Knotts. It's great. And if they're together, it's even epic. So that was definitely my number 3.
So yeah, I've actually struggled with my number 3, but I think I finally figured out which one I'm gonna put in that spot after going through my list again. Because there's so many, dude. I mean, like and one of the reasons why I'm kind of narrowing it down is because a lot of my stuff is wound up being attached to series, and I'm like, I'm not gonna, because yeah, like Herbie, that was, I mean, who doesn't love Herbie? Like the entire thing, even though it's like the weirdest, kitschiest thing ever, it's still amazing. But one that just stands out and has to be probably my number 3. And again, it's kind of the same reason that one of the animated movies made my list, because it's 1986, and it's again one of the movies that my dad, my brother, and I saw in a theater. Flight of the Navigator.
Oh yeah,
I loved that movie.
That, as I recall, had a very young Sarah Jessica Parker in it. She had a very small part.
I don't have her listed, but it's possible. It could. I think you're right, but she didn't make the top list.
Yeah. That was such a cute movie. I keep saying that word, cute, but it was a good movie, and I love the concept behind it. Yeah,
well, that's just it. Old Disney used to be cute. Now new Disney just sucks.
That's true.
I'm just saying. I mean, Do you have any more or any honorable mentions or anything you want to go into? Because I have at least one honorable mention.
Well, I have honorable mentions in both. And for animated, my honorable mention is one that most people didn't get to see much of, but it actually came out in the 80s, and it was called The Great Mouse Detective. And
that was actually going to be my honorable mention for animated. So
really, it is so underrated, and yet, I mean, Vincent Price was the voice of Ratigan, a rat that was trying to convince the world that he was a mouse, and he was in charge of this entire gang of mice, and they were going to overthrow the, I guess, the Mouse Queen, the equivalent of Queen Victoria, I suppose, and they were going to replace her with an animatronic, and they kidnapped a toy maker for that particular purpose. Well, the toy maker had a young daughter, and the young daughter is looking for her dad, so she goes to see the Great Mouse Detective, who happens to live underneath 221B Baker Street, which is where Sherlock Holmes lives. And so he is very much fashioned after Sherlock Holmes, and he finds his Watson and everything. And it's such a good movie, and it's so underrated, especially how Ratigan is such a bad character. And there's a part where they're singing the song to Ratigan. You remember that part? And all the mice are just singing, "Oh, Ratigan, to Ratigan, the world's your tops," and that's that. And then one mouse says, he's drunk, and he says, "To Ratigan, the world's greatest rat," and everybody goes, "Oh!" So Ratigan gets upset, and he rings the bell. Okay, and this cat comes out of nowhere and kills the mouse that called him a rat. Okay, I mean, it was like you see the shadow of the mouse being, picked up by the cat and dropping it down her throat. And it was just, I was like, holy crap, it's a Disney movie. But the Vincent Price character.
Hang on. Before you go, holy crap, there's a Disney movie. Need I remind you of both Bambi and Old Yeller?
Yeah. But to be fair, you hear the shot, you don't see, you see the shadow of what's happening. So you have absolutely, you know what's happening. You can see what's happening. It's just that it's in the shadow format. And I was like, wow, because before then it was always implied in some way. And this was the first time when you actually saw the action, even though it was a shadow. It was the same thing with Beauty and the Beast when Gaston knives the beast on the side, and then he falls to his death. Before, you kind of just had the impression of that fall to the death. This time you actually saw him falling to his death. And I was like, wow, Disney's like really opening doors here. But yeah, when I saw the silhouette of the cat picking up the mouse and then just eating it, I was like, damn, Disney's out to get people.
Well, I mean, yeah, Benji was also Disney, yes, and that's actually one of the. So what I started trying to do when I realized we were, because I didn't think I had that many, and then I started looking. Because I just usually kind of keep my list in my head, and I started jotting them down. I was like, damn, I have almost as many as she had. I guess I shouldn't have been teasing her. But then I was like, yeah, most of these are sequels though, so I think I'm gonna try to stick with mostly the original, the ones that were kind of like one-off stuff like that. And then, so yes, Benji, Herbie, I mean, all of those things. Like Shaggy DA almost made my list. I loved that movie. It was just something. Yeah, what Flubber? Yeah, that was another good one.
Does anybody remember the $1 Million Duck?
Vaguely, I remember the concept of it. I don't actually remember the movie.
The duck got irradiated, and it started laying eggs, and the yolks were solid gold. It was Dean Jones and Sandy Duncan.
Okay.
And yes, Holes was a great movie.
Oh, she was talking about a movie. Okay, my
it's
bad.
a movie.
Never mind. Carry on. Don't mind me.
Anyway, so I think let's see. So, all right. So I give you my animated. So, do you have an animated honorable mention?
So I do. Even though you took my original answer, I still have one. Toy Story.
What a great movie!
It was another one that was just kind of amazing, and it's one of the first. If it's one of the first times I took my kids to the movie theaters when they were little, and they absolutely ate it up. We had the VHS and they broke it because they wanted to watch it every single day. So for the longest time, I hated that movie. But now that they're all adults, I occasionally sometimes just turn it on and just let it play in the background while I'm doing other stuff.
No, I loved Toy Story, and I think the way they developed the films to the natural conclusion was
not anymore, but it was. Sorry, I was answering. I was answering Steven. He's like, "Is Pixar really Disney?" I was like, "It was. It's not really anymore."
Well, it was, and then they had a contract with Disney. They were not owned by Disney, and then they went independent. And then after that contract ran out, Disney was able to acquire Pixar again. So now it really is under Disney, as I understand it. It was really weird the way that they worked that. But Pixar was actually an Apple thing when it first came into development. And Disney wanted to acquire. Apple said no, and Pixar said no. We're our own thing, and we will work with you, but we're going to do it by contract. And so the contract was for a certain amount of movies, and then after that, Pixar was going to be completely independent. And then I don't know what happened, but Disney was able to acquire it or something.
Yeah, let's face it. Disney has its fingers in a lot of different studios that either were originally started as subsidiaries and then they wound up taking over more control as things went on. I mean, Disney's basically the evil empire of Hollywood, which is saying something because it's Hollywood.
Yeah, right. Not Apple. Steve Jobs, which I always associated them obviously for obvious reasons, but um, whatever. Anyway,
I mean, when you're talking about Apple and Steve Jobs, it's basically tomato potato because he was the founder. But anyway,
Disney has a really good track record of firing people who managed to do great things. Lasseter was one prime example, and then bring in people who will not do great things.
Bring in people like Kathleen Kennedy. Oh wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
my bad.
that's exactly where I was going.
Ma'am, can you see if Kathleen Kennedy under my bed? Okay, sorry, had to be done.
Let's see, an honorable mention for live action. A little known movie that starred a very young Jodie Foster, and the movie was called Candle Shoe. It also starred David Niven and Helen Hayes, and I believe that was Helen Hayes' last film before she passed away. Right. For those not familiar with Helen Hayes, she was the queen of theater back in the 30s and 40s. I mean, the woman was a grand dame, and she actually won Best Supporting Actress Academy Award for Airport 77, or one of the airport films, the one where she played the stowaway. That was it was one of my favorite films because it was kind of a mystery. And the background is Jodie Foster is basically a foster child. She's an orphan. And she is sought out by this gang of thieves. They want to steal a treasure that is at this particular estate, Candleshoe. They think that Candleshoe is this grand estate and there's a lot of money there and all that stuff. And so they convinced Jodie Foster to go in there pretending to be the long lost granddaughter of the lady of the manor, played by Helen Hayes. So she has two particular scars that correspond with scars that the young girl had prior to her disappearance when she was 4. That was 10 years prior, so that makes Jodie Foster 14. So she goes in there, and she then realizes that the estate is really poor, and Helen Hayes doesn't know that most of the staff has been let go. Priory, played by David Niven, I can't believe I still remember all these names. He is the butler, and he pretends to be all of these other members of the staff. So he's always wearing disguises to fool Helen Hayes.
I actually remember this movie. I wasn't sure what.
Do you remember this movie? It was so cute.
I forgot about the butler doing the quick change shit. So yeah, I remember.
Yes, and it was really cool because I grew up with David Niven being in these, really serious films, war films, action films, and all that stuff. And then to see him in this was just icing. It was just so great. But it turns out, that in the course of looking for the treasure, Jodie Foster starts, really liking Priory and the Mistress of Candleshoe, and then the kids that are there to help out are also orphans, and they start, they are distrustful of her at first, but due to a mishap, she hurts herself or something, ends up in the hospital with a concussion. And they're about to lose the estate and everything. There were clues that were left by the Earl of Candleshoe. And so they managed to, there were 4 clues, and they finally managed to find the treasure and save the estate. She starts to leave because she says, I was pretending this whole time. I don't know. I don't think I'm her. I don't know who I am or anything like this. And Helen Hayes says, well, who's to say that you're not her? And so she takes her in along with the other orphans, and So the movie ends. So it's kind of like there's a mystery involved, and it's really neat to see. I'm serious. David Niven just stole the show. He really did. Because to see such a great actor in this role was amazing. He really he's a great um, straight guy, straight man, to anybody, and he killed it in this movie. I recommend if you guys can find it, I recommend it. It's really neat to watch, just for his sake.
Well, honestly, one of the things that I'm noticing tonight, and I'm going to have to double check, almost every single one of these movies when I look them up is listed as being available on Disney Plus. So there's a good chance if it's a Disney movie, you can probably find it on there if you have access. All right. So I have my final honorable mention, and then I have my plot twist. And I don't think I mentioned this one yet because it almost made my number 3. But The Cat from Outer Space.
Oh.
I absolutely loved that movie. And it was actually directed by Norman Tokar, and it was actually his final film before his death the following year. So the last thing he ever did. It had Sandy Duncan, who I kind of had a crush on back in the day, not going to lie. Harry Morgan, Ronnie Shell, Roddy McDowell, and
Yes.
McLean Stevenson.
Oh, and wasn't Ken Berry in it too?
I don't think so. Not in this one. I think you might be thinking of the Shaggy DA. I think that was the one. I think that was the one he was in. But I have it right here, so I can double check. It doesn't mention him anywhere by name that I can see, so I don't think he's in that one. I think I honestly think you're thinking of the Shaggy DA. I think.
1970, late 70s. I could have sworn Ken Berry was in this one. I don't know.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I missed him. Yeah, Ken Berry. He was above Sandy Duncan. I was only paying attention to Sandy Duncan. Don't hate me. You're right. I was like, I don't think so, but yeah.
Well, I don't blame you.
I kept seeing his face. I'm like, yeah, I think, but no. And then I was like, oh wait, yeah, he is. He's right there. Never mind.
No, I don't blame you for thinking just of Sandy Duncan. She was cute.
Just like. All right, and then me, because I always have to be a troublemaker, I have a plot twist. Just to prove that anybody is a better Disney princess than Rachel Ziegler, I give you Uma Thurman, who in fact is a Disney princess, because a certain movie that everybody knows was actually put out by a Disney subsidiary, and it starred John Travolta. It starred, why am I suddenly going blank? Samuel L. Jackson. It starred Bruce Willis, and it's Pulp Fiction.
Michael Clark Duncan was in the film. Tim Roth was in the film. Amanda Plummer was in the film. There were Harvey Keitel, Quentin Tarantino, obviously. But yes, Uma is definitely a better Disney princess than, let's face it, than most of them out there right now.
Dude, let's be honest. When Fox bought MASH, or when Disney bought Fox, which gave them the rights to MASH, that made Klinger a better Disney princess than
this is true. Oh my God. Jamie Farr would be so proud. I'm sure he's been told that plenty of times.
Steven, that logic would make David Tennant really proud because he would probably wear the tiara. It was, but Miramax was.
It is. Yeah. Miramax, Hollywood Pictures, Touchstone, Buena Vista. Those are all under the Disney umbrella. As a matter of fact, it was a big to-do because when The Color of Night came out, it was, as y'all know, NC-17, and was being released by Hollywood Pictures. And people were like, but that's owned by Disney. And Disney was like, yeah, we can do adult films too, we don't just do animation.
Well, that's just it. They have a more extensive live action library than they do animation, and they have a lot of fucking animation. They have hundreds of live action movies. Well, it took me forever to go through the list, and then I started, dude, I like this one, I like this one, I like this one, I like this one, I like this. Then I had to start
Yeah,
figuring out.
I had to like when was the last time I actually enjoyed a Disney film that wasn't Pixar? I actually keep the Pixars separate. And I was like, oh, holy crap, it was before The Little Mermaid. So that's where I went. I went past that. I wanted to do the ones that meant something to me and helped me to grow into a better person. So that's what I stuck with. But if I were just to say, oh, all of the ones that I've enjoyed, there were so many. I mean, who has ever heard of Saludos Amigos? Okay, I hear crickets.
Sorry, I was reading the chat. What did you just say?
Saludos Amigos was actually a short animated film that Disney put out. A lot of people don't know that.
It was just Hello Friends, basically.
No, okay, all right, Max. I loved John Carter. I know it got panned, but I loved John Carter. I thought that it was really cool. I do think that Disney decided to squander the opportunity to adhere better to the books. And had they done so, I think it would have been more successful. There's a lot of people who are big fans of the Burroughs series of John Carter books. And Disney had the opportunity, but they kept messing with it. They wanted more sensationalism rather than adhering to the books. But I enjoyed the film. I thought it was really neat. I thought it was visually stunning. I really, really enjoyed Taylor Kitsch in it. But that's just from the girl point of view.
The whole John Carter, that movie had such potential, and then they just I don't know what happened, but anyway.
Yeah, but
I think that may have been like the beginning of the turning point for Disney when they were just like, yeah, we're just gonna put this out and see what happens, and just fuck it, send it.
Yeah, and which is bad because I Disney had the money, they had the vision. They just decided, yeah, we don't want to spend time on this, and so they started cutting it back. Instead of they were going to do, if I recall, originally they were going to do 3 films, and so, but they didn't, and it was disappointing. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I liked it. I liked John Carter. I liked the was it called Jupiter Rising or whatever it was? And that wasn't Disney, but it was the one with Mila Kunis and the I forget his name, but he did the Chippendales movie. Mike, I don't know.
You talking about Jupiter Ascending?
That one, Jupiter Ascending. That one.
Channing.
Thank you, him. I actually enjoyed that movie. The plot sucked.
Thank you for making me remember Magic Mike.
I never watched it. I never watched that one or the series. I wasn't really interested. I think I was the only female in my entire family that wasn't interested.
I walked in one day and my middle daughter was watching it a couple years ago, and I was like, yeah, whatever. You're old now. I don't care.
Yeah, I just like whatever. But yeah, I enjoyed like I said, Jupiter Ascending. I thought the costuming in Jupiter Ascending was incredible. And whoever did the costume got cheated out of an Academy Award because they did a great job. But the plot, it sucked. I mean, whatever. But I still enjoyed watching it. I mean, I like bad movies too, as you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I mean, who doesn't like bad movies? I mean, hell, I just finished watching one called the Monster the Monster Hunters that I'm pretty sure if they haven't done one yet, Brad and Paul will probably be doing soon. One of the things that always made Jupiter Ascending stick in my head was the it was written, directed, and co-produced by the Wachowski brothers, and for some reason that always made me think of Monsters Inc. Mike Wazowski. I don't know why. But so that's just how my brain worked, and that's one of the reasons that movie kind of got stuck in my head. That and who doesn't think Mila Kunis is a bit hot, even if she is kind of nuts. So.
Oh, she's beautiful. She really is. She's stunning. I think I have a mental block when it comes to Channing Tatum's name because I swear it sounds like a disease. So I just blank him out most of the time. Oh, yes, agreed. The 2018 Robin Hood was a dumpster fire. I hated that movie. And I'm not one of the ones that say Robin Hood was one of the good guys because I've studied enough British history and understand the myth and everything to know that he wasn't all that great. But this movie sucked. It sucked dino eggs. Fossilized dino eggs.
Worse than the Costner version?
Oh, don't you dare drag that one down to this level. Costner is fantastic compared to this. That's how bad this movie was.
That's terrible then, because I mean, don't get me wrong. Like every young adult woman I know was going nuts over that movie. Like my first wife and I watched that movie together. As a matter of fact, she demanded that I sing to her at our wedding, and I had to sing one of those songs. Just saying.
Everything I Do. You had to sing that song?
I actually luckily it was only on VHS, so it didn't survive because I don't have it anymore. But yes, I actually sang that song.
I went to the movies with my my best friend from college. At the time, we were roommates living in North Richmond Hills, and we went to go see it. And there were a healthy amount of people were in the theater and everything. When Sean Connery showed up, every single female screamed. I am not even exaggerating. I know because I was one of them. So was my roommate. Every single woman in that theater screamed. That man, I swear to God, even his carcass is still sexy because I don't know what it was about Sean Connery, but every woman, and the age range did not matter. It did not matter. There was a family there were 2 rows down and about maybe 5 seats over. And it was the mom, the dad, and their 2 daughters. And you could tell they were teens, like early teens. They screamed, okay, over Sean Connery.
Dude, I mean, Rex, seriously though, Flynn is to Robin Hood what Keaton was to Batman. Nobody did it better. I'm just saying.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. And it's funny because the director, Kevin Reynolds, good friend of Kevin Costner's, let him just walk through the role because he had just finished Dances with Wolves and he was completely exhausted. So that's why Costner just pretty much walked through this role. And let's face it, most people were going to go watch this movie because he was in it. That was enough. Dude. Women were swooning over Kevin Costner, and that was enough. And sure enough, that was enough. I mean, it made box office.
I'm not gonna lie, that movie got a lot of us laid. I'm just gonna say
The funny part is, in real life, for a time, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, who played Marion, was next door neighbor to Alan Rickman. And for Christmas, every year until they moved or whatever, he would send her the Christmas card that he would send Mastrantonio and her husband was a picture of him on top of her in this film. That was the Christmas card.
Nice.
They had a running joke going back and forth.
No. So no bit. I said what I said. Now I will admit, Adam West is my favorite Batman because I never got into the comic books until I was much older. So I didn't appreciate the Keaton Batman at first until I actually started reading the comic books. That version of Batman is so much closer to the actual comic books, which is why he's still one of everybody's favorite Batman. And it was before it got really weird. And
Keaton really loved being Batman, and he, a lot of people had reservations because it was a serious role, but he used his comedic chops to actually make that role a little bit more tender and more human, and there's that scene where they're in the big dining room, and it was his idea to actually have Nikki Vale and Bruce Wayne seated so far apart from each other, and to make it even funnier. And one of the things, when he's looking around, I don't think I've ever been in this room before. That was actually ad-libbed, and so it kind of helped him. What I didn't know was that at the time he was dating Michelle Pfeiffer, and they wanted Michelle Pfeiffer to be Vicky Vale. And he said no. He talked it over with Michelle Pfeiffer, and they said, yeah, this would make it awkward, so no. They had broken up by the time the second Batman was going to be on. And so when they decided to get Michelle Pfeiffer to be Catwoman, they said, yeah, we can now work together because we broke up. Isn't that weird?
That seemed backwards to me. But yeah, I was like, wait a minute.
I know it's bizarre, but it worked better. I think.
I was like, didn't you play Catwoman in the second movie? And I figured they would not be able to work together very well after splitting up. But hey, what do I know? But yeah, so I mean, as far as the rest of it, I think if they had been able to do it, the best way to pull off the Val Kilmer versus George Clooney Batmans would have been to have Clooney play Wayne and Kilmer play Batman, because whether Clooney was in the tux or in the suit, he was Wayne. Whether Kilmer was in the tux or in the suit, he was Batman. If they could have put those two together, it would have made a much better movie than the two movies that did separately.
I do agree.
They were bad. They were just bad.
They were very, very bad. And it's funny because, with all his success, George Clooney keeps a framed poster of Batman Forever in his office. And he says it's to remind me
that not everything I do is good.
Yes. Pretty much. That is to remind me.
kind of like his presidential picks. Oh wait, did I say that out loud? My bad.
Oh, he's at the point where he does have fuck you money now, so he doesn't care.
Oh.
Anyway, well, we're done. We're kind of past our time, so
we're kaput. We did it. I think we did it justice, and I would like to say thank you to the 500 people that are watching us right now.
Whoa. Not watching. No, not watching.
Well, they're looking at an empty bar. One of these days, I'm going to find a program that'll put like people in the background.
That'd be kind of cool.
You and I are chatting at a table right now, just chilling.
Yes, actually, I'm going to answer that, Stephen. I am a Zardos fan. I've actually watched that movie. I've actually enjoyed it. And believe me, after you get over the scarring of seeing Sean Connery in that outfit, it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's just funny because Gene and I were talking about this last night because he was like, our numbers were down because I told him, I said, I ran you last night. I said, we only got 120 on the feed, and that's unusual because usually, especially in the later night stuff, we're pulling in 300, 400, 500 because there's nothing else on. He's like, yeah, I think people are getting tired of politics. And then today I did my show and I had 100 and a half. And I'm like, yeah, I think you're right. And then we did the night and we're sitting over 500. I'm like, yeah, I think people are just tired of politics. I can kind of relate. And I live it. And I live it. So some days I'm just like, I don't even want to get out of bed.
Anyway, on that note, Rick, why don't you tell us where we can find you?
Don't find me. It's a trap. You can follow along with me at RowdyRick73 on X. You can find the station at KLRN Radio. You can also find it on YouTube and Rumble under the same names. You can find me tomorrow night first pushing buttons for the Front Porch Forensics crew. And then Amish and I are doing part 2 of our deep dive into juxtaposition, our deep dive show called Juxtaposition, which is where we do our leap into the weird, the unusual, the unexplainable. And we are continuing our annual Mandela Effect show. And there's some offshoots from the Mandela Effect that I've been finding, which is another reason why my brain is just kind of fried right now, because there's just so many things that physicists are proposing now that are all kind of offshoots of the same thing. But we're going to get into the rest of the Mandela, some of the weirder things like the 1988, and then I think there's the 1988, the 1999 paradox, and there's a few other things along the way that are kind of tied into that as well. So those will be kicking off at 8 Eastern and running until midnight Eastern time, back to back. First Front Porch Forensics and then Juxtaposition. I'm off on Sunday. Monday night I'll be back doing America Off the Rails at its new time, because I know you and Jeff are usually done by 9, right? Usually,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, we're done. Central Time we start at 7:30 and we're done by 9.
Yeah,
and
no,
it's
I was
usually a hard stop for us.
Well, yeah, I was just double checking because with Sean being back on Monday nights, because he does Mondays and Wednesdays. So what I'm gonna do is Rails is just gonna start running from 9 to 10 Central, 10 to 11 Eastern, because that'll fit in on the nights that you guys do your show, and I'll just extend it a little bit on the nights that the girls are bringing back red wine. So that way we don't have dead air between Sean taking off at now what will be 11 Eastern. So that'll happen, and then Tuesday through Friday next week, Rick Robinson show, and then for the rest of it, please just go check the KLRradio.com schedule. I'm not saying that to be mean. If I tell you everything I do and all the places I do it, Aggie will be here for another hour because I'm nuts. So, how about you, Aggie? Where can folks find you?
You can find me at Aggie Beacon and at Aggie the Barkeep. Those are over on X. You can find me 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday nights doing the Cocktail Lounge with the ever suave Brad Slager. 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Friday nights doing He Said, She Said with the awesome you. Second Wednesday of every month, 8 p.m. Eastern, the guys get together for Toxic Masculinity, where we host a Babe of the Month and I bring the drink of the evening. And Jeff and I, on the first Monday of every month, do Spirited Books at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. See the pattern?
Yeah, we call it Aggie time around here. Everybody calls it that but you.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope you had a good time reminiscing about all the nice old Disney movies.
And I'll be honest, some of the reasons I didn't bring up some of the ones you guys brought up in the chat was because I knew you were going to bring them up in the chat. That way you guys get participation trophies. And not just because you have the hottest mom in the league.
Whatever.
Bye, everybody. There's an inside joke about that on my Twitter feed. You can go find it. And then it'll make sense.